Today we're going to be talking about the instrument families.
There are 4 instrument families in the orchestra. We're going to take a close look at each one of them, how each of them are characterized, and how each of them make a sound.
Sound is just vibrations.
Each of these instrument families create sound or vibrations in a different way.
We're also going to take a look at some example instruments, as well as instruments that are not found in the orchestra.
In the Woodwind family, the instruments were traditionally made out of wood. But nowadays, most of them are made out of metal.
The part of that word wind is still important because you still have to use wind, in this case air from your lungs, in order to play the instrument.
All the instruments in the Woodwind family, with the exception of the flute and the recorder, use something called a reed, which you attach to the top part of the instrument.
A reed is just a small thin piece of wood that's on the mouthpiece, like she said, and what it does is it vibrates air throughout the instrument.
All the instruments in the Woodwind family have a bunch of buttons. These buttons are called keys.
Every instrument in the Woodwind family also has a long pipe going throughout the instrument, and some of the instruments have a curve at the end.
Examples of instruments in the Woodwind family include the flute, the clarinet, the saxophone, the oboe, and the bassoon.
In the brass family, the instruments are all made out of metal, typically brass.
For these instruments to make a sound, you need air, but also you need your lips to buzz or vibrate like this.
And if you buzz or vibrate your lips into a mouthpiece, it sounds like this. Another interesting thing about the brass family is that if you take a look at the instruments, you'll notice that their tubing wraps around instead of being in a straight line like the woodwind instruments. If you were to take the tubing from a tuba and straighten it out, it would be 16 feet long, which is almost as tall as a full-grown giraffe.
What all instruments in the brass family have in common is that it has a bell at the end, a mouthpiece here in the beginning, and all instruments in the brass family have these buttons called valves, with the exception of the trombone, which uses a slide.
The instruments in the brass family include the trumpet, trombone, the euphonium, tuba, and the horn.
The instruments in the string family are easy to recognize because all of them have strings that you can see and play.
The instruments in the string family are also made out of wood. If you take a look at the acoustic guitar, it's made out of wood. Even electric instruments like this bass are made out of wood.
The body of the instruments are hollow, and they all have a sound hole that projects the sound.
In order to make a sound on a string instrument, you have to do one of 3 things. You can either pluck a string, you can bow the strings like on the violin, or you can strum the strings where you play more than one string at the same time.
In order to change the sound on string instruments, you have to press on the strings with your finger on different spots of the long neck.
Some instruments in the string family include violin, viola, cello, bass, harp, and the guitar.
The percussion family is very diverse.
No matter what an instrument is made out of, it can be a percussion instrument, depending on the way you play it. Percussion instruments are either hit, shake, or script.
Percussion instruments can be either pitched or non-pitched.
Pitched percussion instruments include any instrument that can make different notes, like the piano or the keyboard, and the xylophone.
Non-pitched percussion instruments include instruments that don't have a bunch of different notes, like egg shakers, drum sets, maracas, or even buckets.
This was an overview of the 4 instrument families.
Stay tuned for future videos where we describe each of the instruments and how they're played in more detail.